It's the biggest land war in Europe since World War II. More than 1 million Russians alone have either died or been seriously wounded. More than 600,000 Ukrainians dead or severely wounded. Tremendous damage. And I've come here to Ukraine to see what's happening 3.5 years into this war. Yesterday was the National Prayer Breakfast, and of course the ongoing negotiations. President Trump, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, and of course the war criminal of the Kremlin, Vladimir Putin. What's going to happen? Where are things going? Hi, this is Joel Rosenberg. I'm just outside of Kiev, the capital of Ukraine, and I've come here for All Israel News, as well as for TBN, for the Rosenberg Report, to talk about what's happening, to see it for myself. I believe we are seeing prophetic events unfold. I believe this is part of the birth pangs. This war, this horrific war, it's part of the birth pangs that Jesus spoke of in Matthew 24, Luke 21, also in Mark. When Jesus talked about wars and rumors of wars, he talked about nations against nation, kingdom against kingdom, and he talked about birth pangs, right? He said these huge cataclysmic events are going to be happening more and more and more as we get closer to the return of Christ. Not saying exactly when the return of Christ will be, but Jesus says, watch for these signs. And when he uses the term birth pangs, what he means is, right, when a woman's about to, getting closer to delivering her baby, the one that you expect, the one that you're waiting for, contraction, release, contraction, release. And as you get closer and closer, the contractions are longer and harder and more painful, and the release periods are shorter. And I believe that COVID was one of those contractions. 7 million people on the planet died during one of the most horrific plagues, certainly in modern history. I believe the land war that started with Russia invading Ukraine, just cruelly and without any cause, on February 24th, 2022, this was also a major birth pang that's continuing on. This is a contraction that's continuing. I believe the war against Israel by the Iranian regime from 7 different directions, I believe that's been part of a birth pang. And of course, that's ongoing, right? The war inside Gaza is heating up as Israel is preparing to invade Gaza City and try to finish off Hamas once and for all. Now here, I just literally arrived in Ukraine early this morning. Yesterday was the National Prayer Breakfast hosted by President Volodymyr Zelensky and attended by 350 evangelical leaders and others, many, of course, most Ukrainians, but some from the United States. I wasn't able to get here in time for that because of other meetings, but I came here to meet with evangelical leaders, Lord willing to meet with Volodymyr Zelensky, to interview him and to see the damage and to see the suffering and to understand better by coming here, by really seeing it for myself and meeting Ukrainian Christians and others who are living this war the last 2.5 years. I've come to this particular bridge because this is one of the places where Ukrainians have basically commemorated this site. This was a bridge leading out of, leading into Kiev, the capital city, but the Ukrainians themselves blew it up. Because the Russian military was coming, and they feared they rightly feared that the Russian army was coming to invade Kiev, the capital, and kill Zelensky and kill every member of parliament or take them hostage or arrest them and destroy and take over this capital and end Ukrainian freedom once and for all. This week happens to be the 34th anniversary of independence of Ukraine from the slave masters of the Soviet Union for so many years, 70 years. And it's been 34 years now that the Ukrainian people have been free, but they are fighting for their lives. And this bridge, so interesting, if you take a look, they blew it up so that the Russian army couldn't come in. The Romaniv Bridge, blown up on February 25th, 2022 by the armed forces of Ukraine, played a crucial role in halting the advance of Russian forces towards the Ukrainian capital. The path under the destroyed Romaniv Bridge became the road of life for local residents, serving as their only escape route from intense hostilities. After hiding in basements without water, food, electricity, or communication, cut off from the outside world, people emerged at the Romaniv Bridge, desperate to flee the nightmarish conditions of their city. The evacuation, carried out under the constant fire of the enemy, saw volunteers, soldiers, and other service members adding civilians in crossing the river and guiding them to transport headed to Kiev. This route saved thousands of lives. The sight of the destroyed Romaniv Bridge with civilians striving to escape has become one of the most poignant symbols of this war. Now you'll see over here, yes, now the Ukrainians have built a brand new bridge so that there can be commerce, because there's not a current fear of the Russians being able to get here. The Russians were so sure that they could capture the capital and end this war quickly, they didn't bring enough fuel or food or water or ammunition for a long siege, but they got pushed back by the bravery, the courage of the Ukrainian people. So the Ukrainians have now built a new bridge so that regular, commerce and society can go on, but they're keeping this part of the bridge, this old bridge. They want you to see it. They want to see the destruction as a way to commemorate the courage and the sacrifice that they had to make to keep Vladimir Putin and his forces from flooding into Kiev and taking over the capital and the country. Vitaly, what was it like for you as not just a Ukrainian, but a Ukrainian Christian, someone who works for and runs TBN Ukraine? What was it like for you thinking the Russian army was coming over this bridge at any moment?
I remember those days when my family, me, my daughter, my son, we were hearing many helicopters, airplanes, Russian helicopters, a lot of shelling, because we live not far away from this place, maybe 15 miles, and we didn't know what to expect. We thought that everything would be stopped, but we saw news how thousands of people were escaping from this European city through this little path with dogs, with sick parents, with nothing almost, leaving cars on that side of this street. And we were thinking what to do for our family. We were praying, of course, we were crying about whole Ukraine, about these people, but we're here also. And then we got news that in an hour Russian troops would surround whole Kiev and there would be no way to leave the city. And I made decision to take my family and left and to leave Kiev to western part of Ukraine. And I remember driving with tens of thousands of people, and you can imagine 4 million people left Kiev during those 2-3 days. And unfortunately, many people could not leave Kiev and were killed even on this street because they could not leave, and Russians were shelling Ukrainian families who were driving their cars, and many cars were destroyed. And you will see in our next video destroyed cars where people, parents with kids, were living, trying to escape, and Russians killed them. And I was thinking about my family, that it could happen with us, and I brought them to western part of Ukraine. I brought them to Polish border, and I said goodbye to my wife, to my daughter, thinking that I wouldn't see them probably, because men were not allowed to leave country, to stay and be ready to protect Ukraine. And then they spent 7 months in America, and I didn't know that I would see him again. And then they made decision, and my daughter called me and said, "Daddy, I want to come and be with you, even if I die under Russian rockets." And we were praying, and then they came back. And at that time, TBN UA team was working. We were producing videos, news, testimonies of people, how God showed faithfulness, how God protected, how God gave strength to be here, to help refugees, to bring food, clothes to thousands of people who were escaping to more safe part of Ukraine. And TBN was here also helping those refugees, telling the truth about reality of situation that Russian troops came not to save us, but to kill, to destroy Kiev. And
and then when you actually heard that the Ukrainian military had blown up this bridge, what was your reaction?
We knew that it was only one way to protect Kiev from Russian troops. Ukrainian army needed to destroy some bridges around Kiev in order Russian troops could not come. And Russian troops stood several kilometers from here and just shelling Kiev and like missiles, rockets and shells. They were coming to this place, to other part of Kiev. But because of destroying this bridge, Russian tanks, Russian troops could not come to Kiev and capture our capital, because it was their plan to come to capture, to take our government or to destroy our government and to take control. And this is a historical place that Ukrainian soldiers stopped Russian troops here and in other parts where bridges like this were destroyed and Russian troops could not capture Ukrainian capital Kiev.
I'll be reporting more on what I see and hear from Kiev and from places around the capital of Ukraine over these next few days. But from Ukraine, that is battling for its survival and praying, the Christians are praying, they're not sure how these discussions, I wouldn't even call them negotiations yet, but how will these discussions, just turn with me for a second, as the Christians of Ukraine, whether they're Orthodox, whether they're Roman Catholics, or of course many evangelical Christians, millions of evangelical Christians here, they're praying, Lord, we're not quite sure what's happening between President Trump, Volodymyr Zelensky, and of course Vladimir Putin. They don't know if the West is going to stand with them. They hope so. They're inclined. They long to see the West, and particularly the United States, just give them so much support that they can get their country fully back and bring an end to this war. But nobody quite knows at this moment. And again, that's another reason I wanted to come here and see it for myself. I believe we are living in major prophetic moments. And you can't always say that, right? Not every event, and even every bad event in the world, is a prophetic event. But I believe that this war here, as sickening and as tragic and as barbaric as it has been, I believe this is a birth pang. I believe this is part of Bible prophecy. And I wanted to come and see it for myself. So we'll keep reporting from Ukraine over the next few days. And then we'll have some reports soon on the Rosenberg report. But from the capital city of Ukraine, this is Joel Rosenberg for All Israel News.